Is it weird for you to see Liz Cheney, that'd be Dick Cheney's repulsive little daughter, running against you with Kamala Harris?
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy.
Okay, so that is Donald Trump using the sort of violent language in regard to his critics that has become, I guess, just expected, almost cliched at this point. Although people's response to this particular comment really depends on what you think he was attempting to do there. He is of course conjuring up the image of Liz Cheney, a prominent critic of his, being surrounded by guns. He is also talking about the fact that she is in fact historically a war hawk, and he's going to try to make that case in this clip.
The reason she couldn't stand me is that she always wanted to go to war with people. I don't want to go to war. She wanted to stay in Syria. I took them out. She wanted to stay in Iraq. I took them out. I mean, if it were up to her, we'd be in 50 different countries. But she's a stupid person. And I'd have meetings with a lot of people, and she always wanted to go to war with people.
Okay, so the fictional pulling out of wars that he definitely did not actually do aside, so you have a little mixed up situation there. He's referring to her as being a war hawk. He's pretending that that's why he has a problem with her when it's just the fact that she doesn't support him. Loyalty is the only thing that matters. But of course, the way that he chose to sort of advertise this idea to a crowd of people in the audience is to create the image of her being surrounded by guns. Now, is this the greatest provocative thing that he's come up with? No. He has more directly endorsed military tribunals against Liz Cheney. His calls for her to potentially be tried and perhaps executed for treason have been more explicit in the past, but a lot of people are angry about this. And we'll just throw one out. Liz Cheney didn't appreciate this. She said, "This is how dictators destroy free nations. They threaten those who speak against them with death. We cannot entrust our country and our freedom to a petty, vindictive, cruel, unstable man who wants to be a tyrant." And of course, Donald Trump has been talking a lot about the enemy within, the enemy of the people, the military, the National Guard being deployed against Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi. And so this seems to fit in a new genre of his vindictive focus. But what do you make of this? Do you think the criticisms are fair?
Yeah, well, depends on which criticism you're talking about. So some folks are saying that he called for the execution of Liz Cheney. No, he didn't. He was criticizing her for being a war hawk. I'm sorry, that's true too, but a chicken hawk in particular. And I've done a version of this where I say they never want to go to war. In fact, I've done it about Dick Cheney, and I forget if he got, I remember now. He had 5 deferments, and I used to kid around and say that when the Democrats were running against him, they should say that he got 7 deferments so that he would have to clarify, no, I only got 5 from Vietnam, because he didn't want to fight that war. And Republicans at the time, Tom DeLay, Gingrich, Trump, Cheney, all had excuses like, one of them said, the minorities took my spot. Really, they took your spot to die. And you were like, oh no, golly gee. And of course, let's not forget the biggest chicken hawk of all, Donald J. Trump, who's like, I got bone spurs, I got bone spurs, right? Well, which foot do you have the bone spurs in? I forget, both, maybe. Yeah, it was a fake doctor's note that's already been exposed. He's a spoiled little child that got out of the war because his dad was rich. Now, you say, well, maybe he's not a chicken hawk because he's anti-war. Is he? He just said to bomb Iran, right? He killed our top general. He moved our embassy in Israel. He's done one provocative thing after another, after another, after another, and then of course, like a spoiled little kid, he runs away and goes, I didn't do it, right? Somebody else broke that jar. Okay, yeah, maybe. So if you think this guy's gonna lead to peace, I think you're totally and utterly mistaken. His criticism of Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, I got no problems with. I share that criticism. But in the midst of a race where everybody's worried about political violence, saying that you should talking about fantasizing almost about pointing a gun at her face, not the right way to go. obviously not the right way to go. And why I get frustrated sometimes at members of the press or the Democratic Party is that when they say that he called to shoot her in front of a firing squad, which I've seen. Well, you lost credibility for no reason. And then it makes people go, no, he didn't say that. And then you can devolve into a conversation about whether Liz Cheney's a chicken hog, which she is. And so is her dad.
What about when he re-truthed the statement she should face a televised military tribunal?
Yeah, I mean, look, what is these military tribunals? If people are accusing you of being a fascist, you should shut the F up about military tribunals. Unless you think that they're correct. He doesn't understand anything. He's like, I don't know why they're calling me a fascist. I said terminate the Constitution. I did a fake electoral plot to overturn and steal an election. And then I want my enemies from within, to either be shot by the military or go in front of a military tribunal. I don't know. I don't know why, okay? So look, yes, he says all those things, but when you say that he called for her execution and he didn't, then all of a sudden nobody's listening to you, and I want them to listen. I want him to listen when he says terminate the Constitution and go in front of military tribunals. So this was a really dumb thing for Trump to say, and it'll cost him. At the same time, please don't overhype, because that is counterproductive. So frustrating. Anyways, Sharon.
I don't mean to frustrate you more, but allow me to overhype it. I believe he was absolutely fantasizing about her death. I believe that he would like to see her hurt or killed. Remember, this is a guy whose best friends are Putin and the other guy who's in North Korea who loves to starve and kill his own people and push them off buildings and stuff. So I know what a tribunal and 9 guns pointed at her means to Trump, I think. We still don't know who left the pipe bomb outside DNC headquarters. As more he spouts off, people do weird things like, I don't know, show up on January 6th, threaten to hang people. A woman died, officers hurt, another officer dies related to this. I think he absolutely is fantasizing about killing her. He hates her, and he does wish she were dead.
Well, here is what he is saying directly coming out of this. So we have to be fair and balanced. So this is what he bleated earlier today. All I'm saying about Liz Cheney is that she is a capital W war hawk, and a dumb one at that. But she wouldn't have, in quotes, the guts to fight herself. It's easy for her to talk, sitting far from where the death scenes take place. Can I just pause for a second? Life is in fact not a movie. I don't know what the death scenes are. These are not scenes. These are actual things that happen. And yes, actual people die in the wars that the Cheneys try to push us into. Actual people also die in the many wars that you inherited when you became president, and you continued until the literal day that you were dragged kicking and screaming out of the White House. You did not pull us out of those wars. You've been whining ever since Biden pulled us out of one of those wars. And as you pointed out, he's making threats against Iran. He's the one talking about bombing drug labs in Mexico, effectively declaring war on Mexico, as Marjorie Greene does the same. He is in no way a dove. He would 100% pull us into other wars and support dictators around the world continuing theirs. But he goes on to say, her father decimated the Middle East and other places and got rich by doing so. He's caused plenty of death and probably never even gave it a thought. That's not what we want running our capital C country. That criticism of the Cheneys is totally accurate. And I, not a political commentator at that point, just a stupid college kid, opposed those wars because I suspected that's what was going on. Just for the record, do you know who did not oppose those wars? Donald Trump, who was on radio shows and said he didn't really seem to care whether we went to war, but like when he'd be asked to be like, yeah, I guess I support it. That's what he actually thought about it. As the Cheneys were war hawking or chicken hawking us into wars, he was like, whatever, I don't care, I'm just trying to get laid, man. Anyway, any other thoughts?
Yeah, well, that X part is literal. I don't want you to guys to not know that. He joked to Howard Stern that during Vietnam, avoiding STDs at the orgies he was going to was his own personal Vietnam, while others went to go die for him. So now, look, I'm gonna do one last thing for the Republicans in a second. First of all, look, we have diversity of opinion here. I don't agree with Sharon. I don't think that it was him doing a death fantasy, etc. But everybody's got a different point of view on it. I think the Harris team embracing the Cheneys is a disaster. And if you keep talking about this story long enough, what it's gonna happen is it's gonna turn from Trump being unstable and saying things he shouldn't say to Trump being anti-war and Kamala Harris being pro-war. Be careful. Just get in and get out of this story. He's unstable. That should be the point of the story. I think people are making a mistake by digging in further. Having said that, one more thing about why this was so terrible. Guys, imagine if you're a Republican, imagine a Democrat said, oh, you know what, I thought Trump is a chicken hawk. He should have gone to Vietnam. He lied about the bone spurs, etc. And it's easy for him to say, oh yeah, I'm so tough for battling ISIS and killing Soleimani, etc. But imagine if there was a nice gun pointed in Trump's face. You know what Republicans would do? They'd lose their minds. They'd be like, oh my God, there was an assassination attempt. And look at what their Democrats are doing. They're trying to get people out of violence and they're instigating it. They're the worst. So yes, same thing applies to Trump. Do not talk about pointing guns in people's faces, especially at a really volatile time like this. It's the bare minimum, but he can't ever do the bare minimum.
Agreed.
Can I just say this? I do think you're right that the Democrats should not lean into this. It doesn't really serve any good purpose for them as we're so close to Election Day. But I also want to say this, as Trump, he's right about the Cheneys, and he's right about people getting rich off of war. But I think it's stunningly hypocritical for him to even go there, as he talks about a bloody deportation of 15 to 20 million people as his first act. And I'm reading all kinds of things about how his rich friends they're already standing in line with their business licenses. They'll get rich off of that, should it ever happen.
Yeah, and also, like, I think everybody knows why it would be a bad thing to send US soldiers into a bunch of other countries to fight some sort of war building by building. But bear in mind that, as you're alluding to, he is saying we should send the military into American cities to root out millions of immigrants. Would he do that? Would he take a gun and start trying to hunt down members of Guatemalan gangs in Cleveland or whatever? Because if he wouldn't, apparently he should shut the hell up about the whole thing. In any event, the final comment, the Harris campaign said, quote, "This must be disqualifying. And I could be wrong, but my prediction is that it will not be."
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.